Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's is pretty long range and pretty big, I have to say. Pluto at the end of 2024 went into Aquarius and will be there for roughly 20 years. I'm not exactly sure the timing, but it's something like that. Pluto is a very slow moving planet and it stays in a sign for a very long time. So it came out of Capricorn, so that during that sort of period of time there would have been a lot of power and transformative energies around the material world and the powers of the world, the sort of things that Capricorn is the ruler of the 10th house, presides over. Being in Aquarius is a very different energy. It's an air sign. Aquarius itself is somewhat dispassionate, very transpersonal, very much of the future, of the collective and of collective connection, but say different, and social connection, but different, say, to what Libra would be. So very interesting future-focused time, and one that seems to align a lot with, I guess, sort of the rapid advances in technology and so forth. So we are in for interesting times. Whenever Pluto, whatever sign Pluto is in, we do see major change, major transformation, both within the world, but also within ourselves. And so I've been thinking for a while about doing a pick a card based on Pluto and Aquarius. And one of the things that struck me is, of course, it is a very long period of time. It's not like doing a pick a card reading around an eclipse, for instance, or something like that, because that's very much of a short period of time and you can see the effect very quickly. Pluto is slow moving, as I say, and it is transformative, and most major key transformation is somewhat slow moving. Sometimes we have the shock and awe of the tower, but that is a bit more Uranian. It's a bit more like Uranus. But nevertheless, Pluto can be part of major changes socially, politically, spiritually, and so forth. So it has some of that energy, but it's sort of, you go into the depths of the underworld for it, and then you come back like Persephone in the springtime to see what that change is going to bring about. So I'm trying in this reading to capture that. So this is a long-range reading. If you see it when it's published, it's fine. You can pretty much see it for the next 10 to 15 years probably, and it would still have something for you. Once you're getting near the end of Pluto and Aquarius, maybe not so much. So you can even come back to it at various times, because it could be that you shift in the energy, you move quicker through the transformations that we talk about here and all that kind of thing. So that's completely up to you. But what I'm going to try and look at is the transformative energy, particularly spiritually and psychologically, and the connection of those for you over that period of time, sort of almost dividing the first part of the tarot thing into sections of the first 10 years and roughly the second 10 years. And then look at three key transformative energies, particularly spiritually, but spiritually, psychologically within you, that are going to be triggered. And we'll then explore each of those in some depth, because all of these, they could happen quite quickly, or the beginning of them could happen quite quickly, but the true transformation with Pluto takes time, and they may be sequential or they may be concurrent. It'll differ depending upon who comes to the reading, and there will be various stages where it's particularly heightened depending upon other astrological transits in your natal chart. But it's an ambitious topic, but it's one that really fascinates me. And so I thought this, I've been thinking long and hard about how to do it, and this is what I've come up with. So this is a very spiritual sort of reading and very long range. So if that's your cup of tea, you've come to the right place. What I am doing to differentiate the piles to help with the choice, and you can always go to more than one, I always say that's completely up to you, is I'm using the Ego Observer Tarot, which is a very psychologically based, and I feel very Plutonian tarot. To me, I actually, in my private reading store, I actually do a reading called You and the Stars that looks at your energies with the various planets at the time and how they interact. And this is the deck that I tend typically to use for Pluto. I just feel that it gets on a whole other level with the tarot archetypes around psychology and depth psychology. And as I say, if I thought that I was going to have a sojourn in the underworld to have a discussion with Pluto or Hades or whatever, this is probably the deck that I would be wanting to have as part of the way of having that communication. So that's why I'm using it. And it's a little bit different in the way that it presents the archetypes, but this is about transformation and difference, so it gives us a different way in. So what I did was, to start with, I shuffled and asked for the first three major arcana cards to be pile 1, 2 and 3 that I dealt out, and these ones will be shuffled back into the deck for this and so forth, so that all the cards are in play for any given reading. But to help with the choice, to let you know, so the first, for pile number 1, we have the star, which is represented here as confidence. So there could be something about the building and the transformation of yourself to increase your confidence and to connect you more with your North Star, potentially, in this period of time. For pile number 2, we have alchemy, which is about the card temperance, so bringing things into balance and all of those sort of things. And then pile 3, we have judgment, which is depicted as awareness. So something maybe very karmic, or some really key decisions that have to be made quickly. So you need to be precise about the changes within and understand them. So that's just to maybe help a bit with the choice. But as I say, you do you. Go to as many readings as you like. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, I've got the timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So you can do the reading with the star, as I say, represented here as confidence. You can see the sort of radiation of the energy. It almost feels like solar plexus energy, even though it's being more held up near the heart center there. But nevertheless, that sort of sense of confidence, light, radiating your own light, being your own star in a way. So I think there's something about Pluto and Aquarius for you that activates that. But I think it's also about, it feels like, because we've got hope with the sun and we've got extremes with the moon. So I look also for a sun and moon energy. So about your life path and your emotional path connected to this over this period of time, and also what's very visible and what's maybe a bit more hidden. So I feel that it really interests me when I saw hope here, when the star is all about hope anyway. So there's something here about the resurgence of hope, the building of hope, new hope, whatever that might be, that is part of your transformation. It might be sorting out a relationship with the concept of hope. I can relate to that. I have often said that hope is sort of the thing in my life that I've had when I kind of know I'm not going to get something. Like, I only kind of need to really activate hope when there's a side of me that feels like it's not going to happen, which probably shows some very deep cautionary pessimism in my personality type. So for me, if I had come to this, it would be probably a welcome sign that maybe I'm going to reconnect my relationship with hope. Having said that, the extremes here, which is the sense of like all the sun, the energy, there is a bit of an issue here, I think, with the radiating light, the light that's there in the darkness, and then almost the heat that seems to be coming off the moon, of a fiery energy that could overload. That's number one. But secondly, is there a kind of a concept here around the amount of change, and particularly the emotional impact and the sort of more unconscious impact that has a tendency to go to extremes, that needs to be balanced. And then what I felt when I looked at these three cards is it's almost like what this character here is holding, as what it looks like, a kind of some sort of like a box or an opening, is almost a bit like Pandora's box. So the other energy that I feel in this for you over this period of time is almost needing to have a wisdom about what you radiate out, because there is a lot going on within. And there are times where this emotionally, the Pluto energies emotionally may take you to extremes. And because it's in Aquarius, this may be extremes around belief, or it could be extreme sort of like emotional responses to social or political issues. So that's something to think about. And as I say, this whole reading is about the major areas of transformation. So they're going to be challenging. That's the point of this reading, really, and to help with that, to understand it. But there's also, I almost feel, a kind of hermit-like energy here as well. So it's almost like the emotional side, which is normally hidden, is more where you are in contact with others. I feel like it's picking up the Aquarius thing. There's going to be a lot of almost telepathic or other communication sort of energy with others, and you are radiating out a lot. But what would normally be hidden is kind of your more private life. So there's a sense here too that for some of you, if you radiate out your energy, your hope, your dreams, what you believe, you may attract a kind of extreme energy to you. You may become very well known, for instance. You could literally become a star. That could happen if it's something that you're trying to do. And so even though you have a private life, it's very visible. And therefore that could bring emotional energy, particularly unconscious emotional energy to you. So I feel as though this is a very delicate balance for you. I feel like the Pluto for you in this period is about transformation that helps you stay on the path and manage your own energy and the radiation of your own energy in such a way that it remains positive for you rather than going to extremes. And as I say, almost a reconciliation with the concept of hope, just as Pandora needed to have that kind of energy. So I think for you, you're going to shift your public persona, I would say. That's what I'm really strongly getting here. And whether it's on the world stage, whether it's locally in the community, whether it's in a workplace, this is a period where you and your energy and your creativity and whatever else it is, your spiritual knowledge is going to radiate outwards. And the big thing to deal with here is managing extremes. At its worst, you could go into extremes and think you become like a god, for instance, or others may treat you that way. People might want to be like cult followers around you. You could become a celebrity and have to deal with those extremes. You could become very powerful around, something like social issues or political issues. And again, it's how do you balance the hope that one would want to bring into the world with the extremes that you're dealing with? So very interesting sort of energy. This isn't low grade energy at all. It's a bit volatile. So what we're going to do is we're first of all going to put out some cards for the first decade. And part of the reason for this is that we may find the real key point of this is in one decade or the other. And when we're talking about Pluto going slowly through Aquarius, it's going to gradually go very slowly through the degrees. So if you have things in Aquarius that are in the first half, the first 15 degrees or so, it's going to be more activated during that first decade. But if it's in the second 15 degrees, it may be more in the second decade. And equally, any sort of things that you have in other signs that are in the first 15 degrees may aspect to Pluto, either as a benefic or as a difficult or challenging aspect quite a bit in the first 10 years or at some point in the first 10 years, or if it's, if you tend to have more degrees in the higher, from 15 and higher to up to 30, then it may be more in the second decade. So we're just trying to get a sense about what is the energy across really long-term span. And then we're going to have a look at the three key areas that are going to be transformed in you in this time. So firstly, the first decade. Noting that this has got something to do with your life path, with how you present your life path and follow it, and balancing hope and spiritual enlightenment and I think privacy with the kind of extremes of being seen, being known, beliefs, all of those sort of things. So the first decade, Knight of Coins, as I have to look at this to read them, Page of Cups reversed, King of Coins reversed, Three of Coins reversed, and Judgment. So certainly, quite apart from anything else, some very key things are happening in this first 10 years. There is a calling. You will have a calling of some sort within the first 10 years. I think it might be later in the first 10 years. I don't think this is going to be immediate because I think that there is some changes around your current structure, whether it's in your career or material things or the core things that have formed your life during Pluto being in Capricorn that need to sort of almost dissolve to allow for this to come through. Because we're starting with the Knight of Coins. So there is something that you're very dedicated to. So whatever your calling is and whatever your life path is, you do kind of know what it is. So the changes for this will be about how to do it more. And it's an interesting way of looking at the Knight of Coins because it's normally kind of the dedicated. I feel this is almost like an aspect of the Knight of Coins that with this energy is like, do you ground this in something, find the true calling, avoid the extremes and get the balance right of this so that you're heading in a balanced way forward? Or is it almost a bit like Don Quixote tilting at windmills, like very dedicated but not following the right star? The fact that the Knight of Coins here too is reaching to a star, this could be for some of you a real understanding that being seen is going to be part of your career, part of your vocation, and that is something you have to allow yourself. You have to be on the precipice to do that, and that does risk bringing in extremes. So there's a number of energies here about understanding and knowing what your path is, which I think will become clearer as this first decade goes through. But I do think it's something about a calling to be seen more. And it's one where you've got to, because particularly the emotional side of things is going to be so full on, you've got to almost develop a thick skin with the Page of Cups reversed. You can't really show too much of what you feel. You do need to keep that kind of private, because I think you're going to draw a lot of energy to you. I think you're actually very charismatic people, or charisma is going to grow in you during this period of time, and it does cause strange relationships. Every charismatic person I've ever known has had strange relationships. So there's something like that going on. You need to develop a tough skin. But you also, with the King of Coins reversed and then the Three of Coins reversed, there's a very big shift for you as it's coming out of Capricorn, because Coins energy is earth energy and Capricorn is that. With the King of Coins reversed, to me, is always something has reached its end point materially. It has to give way. Something new has to come in. And this is saying that has happened. So whether it's literally because Pluto left Capricorn, and so something that you do, or some of you may be involved in some of these very seismic shifts of power that we're seeing politically, socially in the world, that kind of thing, or it could be in an organization. Something in this period of time is finally going to be finished. There is a power force around you. I think it is more the structure or the system that you're in that is going to give way. And a lot of the old, with Three of Coins reversed, the old connections you have will also give way. So I would think many of you are likely to change career, change your direction, change allegiances, and you're going to have to do it, and you're going to have to be quite ruthless about it to do it. It doesn't mean that you lack heart, but you've got to protect your heart, because you're dealing with something, you're dealing with a very big power shift over this period of time, and it is to bring your own power in. And you feel the calling. So even if you haven't fully manifested in the first 10 years, and you may well with these cards actually, but even if you haven't, you've got the calling, you know what you've got to do. So it's like you don't really have a choice, and this is kind of why you need to have hope. So very big shift around power with you, bringing you more to the forefront in something is in the first 10 years. The second 10 years roughly are kind of like the sense of what that is looking like for you. Queen of Cups, Ace of Cups reversed, the Tower. Wow, that's when the very big change happens. Four of Swords and the Empress. Okay, for a start, as I said, it was possible, because we've got a lot of power here, and this is a collective reading. It was possible that some of the key changes and the sort of like the end of the old is going to happen in the first 10 years. And probably that is true, but there is still a very big power shift in the second year. In the second decade, sorry, not year. You'll feel more able to be emotionally open at that point, though. But you're still going to be kind of very careful about who you connect with, but you are more comfortable. It's like once whatever this is falls, and you know the calling, you know what you're doing, you'll feel more able to be emotionally centered in what's going on. And I feel like the light there is connecting to the light there and almost balancing it off. But see how she's holding the world? Like, I do think that there's something here that's very, very much about social issues or political issues or the power of the world, like the shift around that. But you feel more at peace with that, but you are still protecting your heart. And I think you do need to do that. You are also needing to protect your energy and your privacy, because this is the Four of Swords. And look how in this one, it's like all these sort of energies are coming in and out, and it is from the solar plexus. It's like this has moved down into the solar plexus, into the power center. So I think we start with radiating out to get the call and to find the direction. And then you've actually found it in the second decade. But boy, you have to protect your energy, because the extremes could like drain you far too much. The fact that we have the Empress there with the Queen of Cups, there's something about the divine feminine here. There's something about nurturing and creativity on that level. And there's a lot of strength. That brings a lot of strength to this energy. I feel as though it's in a formerly very patriarchal sort of situation, moving into something that is more either matriarchal or more balanced. But yeah, you have to protect something. For some of you, you may be protecting a child or your family. Like there's a very protective energy here. If you have become really well known with the Tower there, like I look at the King of Coins reverse and then the Tower as a resistance, and I think about political resistance. And I'm not saying it has to be that for everybody, but it's an interesting energy. I think that we are looking at one wave of the dissolution of some material thing around you, and you're getting a calling, and then it's like you start to realize the full extent of the power, and it's like anything that doesn't fit almost burns away. And that's why you have to be careful of extremes, and you have to have hope. You have to almost channel the energy of hope and protect your heart as this goes through, so that you can kind of give birth to something new in your life. So there's a lot about power here. There's a lot about being seen. There's a lot about being known. So with that broad sweep, I'm going to draw two cards, two tarot cards for one of each of three major areas within you that is going to transform. So this is more like kind of the experience you're going to go through in the transformation with Pluto. Now what's transforming in you? So the first area that's transforming in you is Three of Wands and Nine of Coins reversed. Okay, that's interesting. The second wave of change, inner transformation, is Eight of Coins and the Emperor. Now that's interesting given that the Empress energy is there. There could be a very big balance going on within you about power and how you balance that. And then the third area of personal transformation over this period is the Four of Cups and the Three of Cups reversed. Okay, all right. So we're going to explore these with some other oracle cards to give us some more information. But before we do that, part of the transformation is that it looks to me as though you are coming to terms with, you may have come out of a period of time actually when the hope, with that hermit-like energy where you were a little bit more hidden or you weren't seen. You're coming into a period of time where you have to connect with other people to have something successful. You have to find those that share the same dream, share the same star energy. I feel like there's a very telepathic thing going on. But the thing about this is that what you have to process here is where the true connections are and your true soul family is, and where people are projecting a fantasy on you. I do think this group, you have to be careful of charisma because it is going to be an issue for you. So finding out who is your true soul family and what does success really mean to you, really, but what is your true soul family and what is maybe a delusion is a big thing you're going to be looking at in this period. Then when we have Eight of Coins and the Emperor. Now the Eight of Coins here talks about routine, so it's like getting into a process, and it's about skill development. This is about developing a skill around power. Like there is definitely, you are meant to be powerful in some way. So you don't have to be president of the United States. You can be sort of like powerful within an organization, powerful within a community group, powerful within your family or something like that. But there is something about you learning your sovereignty. And it's like from both aspects, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. But there is a skill development. You are learning what to do. And again, one of the challenges for you, I think, is that you almost have to start learning doing it before you really know who you are doing it for, and why you would want to do it emotionally, because there's a transformation about your emotional response to all of this. And this is the extremes as well. Overthinking, you've got the Three of Cups reversed. There is one of the things that I think that you will be processing and transforming is where you almost sublimate emotional energy into power and like community and others. and dealing with the extremes that brings back to you. So you're going to almost be forced to look at what do you really want emotionally as well, even though you're probably going to be in the middle of something that has a lot more to do with material power and a lot to do with charisma. So what do you really want emotionally? Who are your people, and how do you develop the skill for power that Pluto is bringing you are the three themes. So we're going to get a card from 5 different oracle decks, just to give us more information on each of these one at a time. So firstly, we're going to look at the secret language of darkness, because I feel as though when we're going into the Plutonian realms, we're going into something like that. So what is the energy in the Plutonian realms for you in this period of time? Firstly, about finding your true family, your true community. Dark night of the soul, ego patterns soften and soul wisdom emerges. So there is something here for you about connection to the right thing through the divine. I think that this is a very political environment that you're in, or a very social environment that you're in. But to really find what is true, you need to kind of connect back to the divine. And the dark night of the soul is understanding that while we want to connect with the divine, we are on earth, and therefore we cannot fully do that. So it's how do you make that connection? There is a sense of loss, and it may connect over to the emotional stuff. If there's a side of you that's very much the mystic, you may have to process that and find those who have a similar soul calling for you. In terms of the Plutonian energy around developing the skill for power, the wounded child, healing trauma makes the world feel safer. Okay, so it's interesting. So we've had the Emperor and the Empress here. Some of you developing your sovereignty, your ability to lead, will come from you exploring where you didn't feel that support, that leadership, that balance, and so forth when you were young. So there's some big stuff here on a psychological level in terms of anything that the inner child felt. And then with the emotional avoidance, like dealing with that so that you don't go to extremes when you're pushed into it, you're balancing it a bit more. The Plutonian energy for that is triggers, intense emotional catalysts. Yeah, understanding your triggers. This will help you understand that. This will keep you on path to find your true family. For many of you, it may well be that you haven't felt you were born into your soul family, or that there are patterns that you've seen within the sort of like ancestral line that are not connected to what you've come to the world to be. So what are you up to spiritually? We're going to get the path of the illuminated soul for each of these. So in dealing with the dark night of the soul that comes from trying to find your soul family and understand what that is in reality, it's possible for some of you, you may want to think that it's with some particular group of people, but that's not real, and you need to find what is real. We have mislead, the clay horse. It's interesting that I said that. Beware the gifts that you give or receive. Appreciation is key. So I do think that you may sometimes think this is the group that I want to be part of, and it may not be the right one. Equally, others may want to be, they might almost bring you gifts because there's an extreme reaction to you and they want to connect with you. I do think a lot of you are going to find people want to connect with you, and it's not necessarily right. So you're going to need to be aware of that. In dealing with your wounds around sovereignty so that you can become a wise leader, we have openness, the driftwood heart. Open up your heart in order to receive, allow the love to flow. So the wounded child can actually be healed by an open heart. This is partly the hope energy. And that's where it's not Pandora's box, that's where it becomes a spiritual thing. And then in terms of dealing with the triggers where emotional disappointments sort of make you avoid emotion, I think. We have the winds of change, the wind chime. When you hear the chimes, the wind has changed, a new direction awaits. So it's meant to ease this through for you. It's not actually meant to be that hard on that level. I also feel like music might help a lot in kind of like processing emotional energies when we have something like wind chimes. So then let's have a look at what it means on an almost programming level. What kind of programming are you processing and letting go of for each of these? So for finding your people, we have complexities. Now in this deck, most of the things are fairy tales and myths, but this is actually a mythical sort of concept, and it's a labyrinth. So It is finding your way through the labyrinth, finding the right pathway. But it may be that doing that has within it the risk or a fear. So, because if you think about most stories about labyrinth, somebody's going in and they're either getting lost or they're finding something like the Minotaur. So I feel as though there's a sense here of letting go of programming that says making the exploration, even if it's complex, is a problem. It's like allowing yourself to explore that and to know ultimately, I'm kind of getting Ariadne's thread, that you could almost have something that would lead you back out when you are right to leave that kind of contemplation. But you do need to be prepared to get in the midst of it and to break the programming that makes you feel you'll get lost when you do that. Programming around opening your heart, healing the wounded child to become the leader. I feel like the servant leader in a way. Fortune. Okay, so this is Aladdin's lamp. What are the risks of fortune? Like Aladdin's lamp, it comes from, stories of the jinn, the sort of sense of the one that brings the wishes. Maybe there's a sort of a sting in the tail of the wishes. Be careful what you wish for. So I do think there's an energy here of, do I even want to take this on? But you are meant to develop that skill. And I think part of that is to have the discernment of knowing the consequences of decisions. That's that point of that story. And then when we look at the programming that's around maybe the emotional avoidance that Pluto's not going to allow anymore. Sensitivity. So you're very sensitive. I think you're very psychic, very, all of that kind of thing. You're very sensitive. You can tell the slightest difference in emotional tone, which for you, given there's extremes, you are going to have to find some ways to protect that energy. It'll become less of an issue as you find your people, but you do need to know that. You also need to trust what you're getting, because if people may say you're too sensitive around people's more extreme reactions. You're actually not. Your radar's really, really good. But you need to use the triggers not to kind of make yourself withdraw or shut off your heart, more to help navigate your way through the labyrinth. Actually, they kind of work amongst themselves, those triggers, I think, or those programs. Let's also look at the everyday impact. What's the everyday feeling there? So the everyday feeling for finding your own tribe, going through the labyrinth. The garden. Oh, this was like the secret garden too. There is much to be found in this. It is trying to say to you this is going to be good. You do have to be aware of how focused others are going to be on you and how much they want to be in your gang, and you're going to have to be discerning, and you're going to have to trust your instincts and be careful of the consequences. But there's meant to be something very good that comes out of that. Then when we look at coming into the leadership energy, what you need to deal with there. Tattoo, what is your personal brand? You are going to need to work that out. What differentiates you? What is so true to your heart and to your understanding and belief about what hope would be, what your dream for the world is, or the dream for whatever this is, that you would tattoo yourself with it, that it's so intrinsic to you. And then around dealing with the emotional energy, the nap, have a bit of a sleep, take time out. It's interesting, we've got both the princess and the pea who feels it on a mattress, and then the nap. If you need to relax out of that energy, just take the time out. I think that's important. But also don't try and avoid it altogether by sort of going to sleep and saying, I'm too tired to deal with it. You do actually have to bring these things into balance. So lastly, we're just going to get you a spiritual guide or energy across the three. I'm not going to do one for each. We're just going to do one that will help you in the energy of connecting with Pluto. Kronos. Oh, wow. Okay. It's kind of Pluto again in its own way. Or it's actually, Kronos is probably a bit more Saturn. It is interesting that it's connected to Capricorn. So this is the old order. So there's something about the old order and the new order. You are inheriting some sort of power in this period of time. You are the new order, but the old order has to be appeased or understood. And I think Kronos could almost be having a conversation with Pluto. So Saturn could be having a conversation with Pluto about here you go, you're leaving my sort of realm of Capricorn, you're going into Aquarius. So I do think the people who've come to this reading, you're connected to this very strongly, and particularly with what's happening in the world, the shift in the world. But Kronos, interestingly enough, is an extreme reaction. The story of Kronos is that he didn't want Zeus or anybody else that was a child to take over his realm, and he ate his children. But his wife Rhea tricked him and had him swallow a stone as opposed to Zeus. So I think this is an understanding. I think if Kronos is here as a guide, in this case there is an understanding. There's a tipping of the hat from Kronos that this change has to happen. There's not the same sort of blockage of it, but understanding this energy here is to understand that the new order that is arising doesn't do it easily, and there are actually resistance, and there is, over this period of time, there's going to be a lot of tumult and change and infighting and all of that kind of thing. So the more you understand the old order, the better you'll be able to shepherd in the new order. Okay, let's just get you some other astrology energy that will help you over this period of time. We have Mercury in the 5th house, vocally creative. It talks about like that your communication and your creativity is a good way of doing things. See, I think some of you are going to, won't necessarily be leaders in the sense of being political or social, although some will, but many of you might become a star. And I think that there's sort of some kind of creative connection to all of this, and new ways of doing things, new ways of media, all of that kind of thing. We also have Uranus in the 6th house, strong feelings of external disapproval. Yeah, I think this is dealing with the issues around family and the old order and the new order. And you may be so different, you're going to get extreme reactions. Some are going to almost be like your fans, your cult followers or whatever. Others are going to be like, no, and that's transgressive, that's wrong. So, your communication is going to help there, your creative communication. And we have Neptune in the 6th house, self-sacrificing service to others. Yeah, there's a servant leader feeling about this. The only thing, it's interesting that it fell there, though, with the emotional avoidance. So I think the one thing that I would say to you is don't self-sacrificing service to others if it's in the developing the skills of being a leader or a performer or something like that, like kind of giving back is great. It's great. But if it is in a way of avoiding the emotional toll of all of this, then it'll probably backfire, because you'll probably get like the extremes where people want more than is reasonable. So it's just a little bit of a word of warning for you, because there's a lot of power in this next couple of decades for you. So just to close out, we'll see a kind of like integrating message from your higher self from the Rainbow Oracle. God. Sovereign King, claim your sovereign self and seize the throne of your own life. Yeah. This is about coming into power, self-power, in whatever that means to you. But some of you are going to be stars, and some of you are going to be very powerful. Some of you will be known, I think, on more on the world stage or the internet or whatever. But it doesn't have to be at that level. But this is a big seismic shift, and the thing you have to be aware of is that they say lonely is the head that wears the crown. I don't think you will be that. I think you will find your people, but you're going to have a lot of wannabes and hangers-on. So I hope that isn't too scary. I actually think it's going to be wonderful in many ways for you, but it is a big period of time. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with Temperance, which is depicted in this deck as alchemy. So the balance of all things, and a very transformative process in and of itself. So this certainly is suggesting a very transformative time. I would suspect, though we will see, as we see with the cards, that it may be a very internal and spiritual transformation rather than necessarily one that is more external, because alchemy as a whole was a spiritual allegory. Certainly it did also birth chemistry. So for some, this could be something that's more in the material world or the scientific world potentially. But I think given the nature of this reading and what we're looking at, I think this is about a spiritual purification process. Pluto in Aquarius is giving the opportunity to really progress that kind of thing. And I think it's going to have a very physical outcome for all that it's very spiritual. and or abundant material outcome. So it's a spiritual process with a physical or material outcome. Because when I look at the sun energy and the moon energy, which is the other thing, I wanted to look at what was visible and hidden, what was life path and what was emotional path, with whatever the energy that Pluto was bringing to the table. We have with the sun, flora, fertility, and we have with the moon, the harvest moon with fruition. I would say one of the things that struck me very much when I first turned the cards over and knew what cards were going to be associated with alchemy, if any of you are wanting to start a family over the next 10 to 20 years, it's likely to be very successful and I think very, very positive. If you want to meet, fall in love and start a family, since this seems to be talking about moving to that kind of success, then definitely that's going to happen. And if any of you are starting, a business venture or trying to build your investments or something like that, that is, again, very material, there is a sense of both visibly and also within your emotions getting a dream that is physical or material. The other thing that strikes me very strongly around this is that both, particularly fertility here, but also fruition, makes me think of Demeter. And why I think of Demeter is, of course, she is the mother of Persephone, and Persephone went into Hades, or went into the underworld and met Hades. Sorry, didn't go into Hades, went into the underworld and met Hades. Hades is a version of Pluto. So the concept of Plutonian change and transformation, it requires a trip to the underworld in a way, and then coming out of it, like Persephone in spring, to manifest whatever the change was. It requires us to look at our deepest psychological foundations, all of that sort of stuff, and understand almost the bargain we do with the world that understands that we will have both times of fertility and fruition and also, autumn and winter, and that is part of the balance, the alchemical balance of the world. Alchemy talks about the 4 seasons and so forth. So there's something in here about understanding that balance, accepting that balance, and then being able to almost strike when the iron is hot, to bring up, to when Persephone is out there in spring and summer, to truly turbocharge what you're doing to get what you want. So it may well be, and it'll be interesting to see, that of the 2 decades, that one may be the one that looks most transformative, and that may be almost the sun decade, or the sun and moon, but like it may be the being in the world decade, and the other may be much more of a internal process. But it might start with that. This might be coming off a process of alchemy that you've done an internal searching in the time that Pluto was in Capricorn. You're coming out to harvest that and reap the rewards, and then in the second half of the decade you may go back, just as Persephone does, to process that and clear that out, and then work out what is next for your spiritual evolution. So we will see. We'll see with the tarot what we're looking at there, because we are going to look firstly at the first decade roughly, and then the second decade, and what we're looking at in terms of transformation. Then we're going to ask, what are the 3 key aspects of transformation that are going to come across the whole period for you, and we're going to examine that in some detail. So firstly, the first 10 years for you with Pluto in Aquarius. We have the 4 of Swords. We have Judgment. That's interesting. It's going to come up in every reading because that's actually the way in for the third one. The Lovers reversed. Okay. The Wheel of Fortune reversed. The 6 of Swords reversed. Now, interestingly, what I feel when I look at that is that this, when I say I feel like there will be 1 decade that is coming out of the underworld and having gone through an alchemical process, being the alchemist in a way that you've already achieved that. It's how you use that ability, I think, is what's going on here. I think for most of you, the first 10 years is when you first come out. It's like the spring and summer, and it's when you're going to kind of like carve out and work out what that change has done for you. So it's a change that you've been through. I would say you've been through something in the latter years of Pluto being a Capricorn, very material or whatever, that has prepared you to come and see what grows. And the first 2 reasons that I think that is partly because the Lovers is reversed. I feel like when I really strongly felt drawn in this one to the Persephone story, and there is a kind of a connection of Persephone being the queen of the underworld and married to Hades. So it's in the separation of the lovers with her returning to the world. I feel like that's representing that. And I wonder whether some of you have separated from a relationship, whether it's a love relationship or whether it was a key relationship in the latter years of Pluto in Capricorn, that is now going to free you to do something new. It just feels to me like with that, and then when I look at, the Wheel of Fortune reverse is sort of like coming out from below. And there was also, is that the Six of Swords reversed. It's a little bit hard to read the writing. Is coming from below. I feel like that's what's happening with the Wheel of Fortune, separating out from that connection and the transformative work that has happened, and not really knowing with the Six of Swords exactly where you're going. But it's sort of like being okay with that, because there's a calling. You've been called back. Demeter has called you back. The Divine Feminine has called you back from your sojourn in sort of like in privacy. So I feel like this is a call to a different form of relationship. It's a call to relationships that create in the world. It's a call to creativity more generally. It's a call to manifesting something in the world in the kind of like allegorical spring and summer. And so I think for most of you, this reflects that you've done a lot of transformation with Pluto in Capricorn. Some of you might have some quite strong Capricorn placements, and that's why. So that first 10 years is you coming back into the world in some way. And whether it is coming back into the world to make the right relationship choice that eventually creates a family, for instance, or whether it's to do something else that is creative and fertile in some way. It will depend upon who's come to the reading. But I think the first 10 years, you're kind of back on Earth. I know it sounds sort of strange. It's not like you literally haven't been on Earth, but you've been in a very, very kind of depth psychology, transformative energy. You're back now having achieved a certain level, and you are now producing in the world. And then I would say in the second 10 years, it's like you go back down to go through the next sort of alchemical transformation. So this is a process for you. So let's see the second 10 years. Because this might actually be the culmination. This is like once you've gone up, you've created something in the world, learned from that, you go back down in to really understand and integrate this. I think this is something that you do, pile 2. So we have death reverse. Yeah, back into the underworld. It's not, you're not dying with it. It's not like you have to die, but you're naturally, you actually, it's kind of like a second home. 8 of Wands reversed. Queen of Wands. Yeah, the Queen of the Underworld. The Tower, where the big transformations occur. And the Empress. Some of you might have gone to more than one reading because there's some similarities in the second decade here with another reading. And that's fine if you did. So this is a very internal thing. I mean, it is like in the first year you're coming out, you're creating something. You will have abundance in some way, or, start a family or be fertile or creative in various ways. For some of you, you're a very creative person, and this is a process of where you get your inspiration. And it's a long range process that builds for long range, pieces of creative work. But it's like you can go into the underworld without dying. So and you don't change. It's not like, this is not about ending a karmic cycle and starting a new karmic cycle. This is you. It's something that you do. You're like a snake that sheds its skin. You just do it. And 8 of Wands reverse, it allows you to slow down just a little bit. You've been doing a lot. There's been a lot of activity in the first 10 years. You can slow down a bit, partly because you're almost like a ever-ready battery. It's like your energy is so strong and so bright that even if you're down there doing that, what you've created is out in the world and is growing. And you're, as I say, Queen of the Underworld kind of energy. Big changes happen for you when you are in that state. So it's sort of like every 10 years or so, I think, you go through a process of going deep within, and you let everything break down that is not going to serve you anymore. But you're in a strong position. Whatever you have done to lead up to this first 10 years has been very effective. So you are going to achieve a lot there. And then it's almost like you'd go away to dream it all up again. And so anything that no longer serves is shifted, and the new creative process happen. So then eventually return to Demeter. So this group, I think, would have a very strong connection with Demeter and Persephone as a kind of a allegory for how you internally spiritually develop, but also how you create. I think you're very creative people. So let's have a look at 3 areas. We're going to get 2 tarot cards for each. That are the 3 key areas of transformation that you're going through in this sort of period of time when Pluto's in Aquarius. And then we're going to explore it with a few oracle decks as well. So the first area of transformation is the Hanged Man reversed and the Knight of Coins reversed. The second area of transformation is the Six of Cups and the Sun reversed. Oh, that's interesting. And then the third area of transformation is the Devil reversed. I mean, the Hades, isn't necessarily the devil. Pluto isn't necessarily the devil, but, there's kind of allegories. And the Two of Coins. Okay, so the first area of change for you is a complete shift in what you would dedicate yourself to. And that might be part of this pattern. It may be, it almost feels, I'd say the thing that it feels most like, and this won't be for everybody, but it's an analogy. It feels like a creative person who goes within and almost creates a persona and comes out and lives that persona and really explores that and does it in the material world and produces in the material world, and then goes back within and finds the new persona, sheds the skin, finds a new persona. It feels a bit like David Bowie or Madonna or someone like that in terms of the transformative energy. You don't have to like them as performers necessarily, but it feels like that. So I think that there is you're going to take a very different approach to material things and a different approach to what you want to manifest. It's like whatever you did in this kind of cycle, because I think you do it kind of in every time Pluto goes through a sign, you kind of do it. So you probably did it a lot around career, money, power in the world or whatever while it was in Capricorn. Now you got the different perspective. The Hanged Man reverse is a very good sign of Aquarius, the sort of more transpersonal, the futurist, all that. And almost the experimental, because Knight of Coins reverse is a bit like something you don't dedicate to stick. You're prepared to move and nuance. So I think there's a looser energy, a more explorative energy around you for this period with Pluto and Aquarius. Secondly, there is something for some of you about family with the Six of Cups and then with the Sun reversed. You may be really starting to think about either what from your past is no longer part of your life path. That could be that, like earlier sort of dreams, you've transformed so much that it no longer applies and this is part of the different way of thinking. Or how do I integrate children and all that kind of thing into my life path? I do think for some of you, the question of family is going to be very key in this period of time. Or you may be someone who's actually facing the opposite. You may have actually been you might have had children and they might have grown up. There might be empty nest syndrome operating here as well too, which could be the sort of Demeter thing where it's like, how do you adjust to the separation that is more a rite of passage life thing for your children? So there's something around that. Did your early dreams, do they work anymore? Or your relationship to family and being a parent? And then the third one is the freedom from this. It's like the interesting thing with the Two of Coins here is that I think that it's actually going to, one of the things that you're going to be surprised about is this has been a process that's worked for you. It's like, I think, each couple of decades that you've been alive, this has worked for you. And then for some of you, you might be very young and you've only really ever known Pluto and Capricorn, and you might just the experience of Pluto and Aquarius might be all you need to almost free yourself from having to keep doing this. Or for many of you, you may have reached an alchemical thing where, like one more time you do this and then you have all the options you need and you no longer have to do it. Like the deal with Hades is done. It's not necessary anymore. And sort of karmically it could even be, for some of you, this might be your last incarnation or something like that. So this is just preparing you for that and for ascension, if you believe in that sort of thing. So interesting. So we've got changing the way you do things, thinking about almost your legacy and family energy, and and setting yourself up to be able to make choices without having to go within all the time. Those are the three themes. So we'll first of all look at the energy in the underworld. So we're using the Secret Language of Darkness deck. So around what is the energy in the underworld in this process that makes you kind of more explorative and open to different ways of looking at things? Self-awareness. Okay. So this is going to be very much a focus about what is this doing in you, and like what have you kind of caught yourself in sort of patterns that aren't right for you, or are there new patterns that you really have to change and you have to be more in the world for? So this is very much about a perspective on yourself, what you believe you are. Then, and that I think might be coming out from there, putting some things in play, and then considering, what does that mean about me? Do I need this process over and over? Then with the stuff around family or your childhood, that kind of energy. Triggers, okay. What are the triggers around that? What would being a parent mean to you? What was your childhood like? Any of those sort of things are the energies that you look like in there. And where do they take you from your life path? And then for the release from this process, getting to the point that you've done all the developing or whatever, or transforming that you need to do of this type. We have the wounded child. That's interesting, these cards. Yeah, I do think some of you have come to more than one reading, because there's some similarity here, just slightly different like perspectives on it. So there is definitely something here either about having children and what that means to you that has something to do with you being a child and all the things that has to do about your life path and being able to make the decision in the light, I think. A fertile decision in the light of the sun. So there's a healing energy here. Like there has been something profoundly healing about doing this. I think it's a creative process for you, but it's also been profoundly healing. Let's see with the path of the illuminated soul, the kind of spiritual energy that's around each of these. So around the self-awareness and the different perspective. Forever, the immortal rose, the stone-carved rose forever captured, a love that cannot die. Now that's interesting, because this is about experimentation. This may be a pathway that's meant to make you find, it looked like the separation from Hades. It may be that, I think that some of you are meant to find your great love during this period of time, and you're meant to think about whether you want to be parents and all that kind of thing. I think you've almost gone into the underworld because of not having felt that. So I think this is where you do feel it, whether it should take a different viewpoint to someone you're with already, and you go, actually, yes, this is the right person, or someone is coming in. And when we look at what impact that has on your view around family and your childhood and all of those sort of things, we have renewal, the golden hour. As they sit by the river's edge watching the dying day, new seeds were sown. I do think for some of you this is going to be about being a parent. It's not going to be everybody. In other ways, it's parent to some new you, new life, new love. And then in freeing yourself from this process, having kind of graduated in a way, we have repair, the golden seam. She took her flaws and filled them with gold, perfectly imperfect. Yeah, taking any of the wounding, doing all of that, understanding it, you've cleared it out. You've gone through really strong depth psychology and freed yourself. So what triggers, like in terms of programming, are you processing with Pluto in Aquarius? So around the experimental new perspective, but possibly finding out of that the energy around that in terms of programming. Wow, is the Omen, this is the Raven. So this is, what do you need to let go of? I think there's a letting go of some past love, some past belief about yourself, some past limitation you put upon yourself, something like that. In this process, you've done it really well and you're about to let that go. But the programming is like, if I let that go, will I regret it? And I think the answer is no, because something better is coming in. The programming that then has to do with your attitude to family, your childhood, all of those sorts of things. Liberation, this is Rapunzel. Like, I think for some of you, and this time you're going to meet a great love and you're going to consider whether you want to be parents. You don't have to be parents, but like that whole thing, you're going to be a parent to yourself and to each other as well. What would it mean to be free? To be free to follow your path, to free the inner child. And then around the healing work that you've done, which is considerable already, and which I think you get through the rest of it that is really key to all of this in the next 20 years or so. Mischief, Kitsune, have a bit of fun. Also, you could find that there are very odd ways that the universe communicates with you over this time, to almost trick you or goad you into looking at things differently. You may have trickster type of energy around guides and so forth that are trying to kind of get you to free yourself. It's almost like I kind of thinking of the devil reverse there. It's like, reading Wuthering Heights and things like that, and like getting your sense of love as being this huge passionate denial or whatever, and then you're kind of tricked into reading, I don't know, Bridget Jones' Diary or something, and suddenly it's kind of, this could be kind of fun. Like, yeah, it has its issues, but it could work out. Like, I think there's sort of something like that occurring as well with you during this period of time. It's like, it's almost like Hades says to you, or Pluto says to you, I'm happy to help the transformation, but you're almost getting beyond this. You kind of need to hang out with Mercury or something like that. It's kind of what it feels like. So speaking of other energies before that, actually, let's do the everyday energy that'll show up with each of these. And then we're going to get you another guide, and we'll look at some other astrology. So the everyday energy around the different way of looking at things, the stars, following your star, following what you want. And the astrology here is very important. So pay attention to your astrology. Think differently about your chart, I think. Then when we look at the liberation energy to liberate the inner child, I'm fine. Yeah, you have to look at what really happened. This is really making you look at that, so that you can only renew if you actually accept, there is something that I want to heal. I think you're doing it. But I think sometimes it could be that you aren't, like literally with play there, having enough fun. I think there's something here about saying have a bit of fun. And then the everyday energy around the freedom out of this process is the snake. So okay, so there's an interesting energy there for you. It's like sometimes you're going to get fun energy, but sometimes it's a trickster, or you have to be careful. So I think it's sort of saying that you don't necessarily have to do a lot of depth psychology, but there's a point at which you've got to kind of then look at the psychology of others, because some people are just having fun and the right people to connect with. Some are not. And it's like understanding that and committing to that, because it may well be that the emotional energy where you've backed off is because you've had that kind of energy around you. So, okay, let's get you another guide, another deity along with Pluto during this time. Judicia. So, okay, so one that will protect you here, I think. There's going to be a protective energy to make sure that everything is in balance. And it's interesting because we've got like temperance, which is the balance, the alchemy of all the various elements. Judicia is kind of a bit like the justice card. So it's a kind of a balanced way of thinking about things. So she will bring you balance in all of this. I feel like when you are in the underworld, you are the alchemist and you are able to kind of navigate that. But when you are in the world, I think she will help you balance it with the ways of the world and understand when things are fun and mischievous and when you have to be wary. Understand when liberation is fine, but you need to think about how to protect yourself. That kind of energy. Okay. I also think because the stars is important here, any of you that have strong placements in Libra, pay attention to that. That's going to be important over this period of time. Speaking of the stars, let's just get a little bit more astrology energy around it for you. So we have Jupiter in the 7th house, cooperative. I think this is potentially, because it's fallen here too, this is about finding a good, balanced love relationship or good, expansive relationships with others. And I say Libra, cooperation, working together, that kind of thing. Then we have Mercury in the 5th house. So that came up with one of the others as well too, vocally creative. So you're very creative. So there might be something about your message that helps you work through this and helps you process it. And then we also have the moon in the 2nd house, emotionally attached to possessions. Now, the interesting thing about that is I actually don't think you are that, but I think you are going to be sort of like abundant. So it's going to work out. But I think it is the fact that it fell here. It's fitting with the 2 of Pentacles coming off the the devil reversed. Part of what you need to work through with this is knowing if you are going to be abundant, because I think you are. I think the work that you've done in Pluto and Capricorn, in the next decade of Pluto and Aquarius, you're going to be very abundant. You're going to, like, financially, materially, in many ways. And there may actually be some emotional energy around that you need to process and free yourself from, which might date back to something about how you were brought up and what attitudes there were about money, so that you can, with the Two of Pentacles, as we saw before, be able to make choices there without being emotionally stuck with it. So it's kind of like, how do you deal with success if you've been almost taught that success is somehow not spiritual or something like that? Okay, so to finish off, we're just going to see what your higher self wants to say about the period for you. Guardian. The Guardian stands at the threshold of your progress. May your doors, paths, and gates be open. I think this is like another guide energy for you, along with Judicia. Your own higher self is a guide energy. It will guard the doorways. This is why you are quite comfortable in the underworld or whatever. You know the ways between the realms. You actually have that ability. And I think you may guard it for others as well. And if any of you are looking to bring in a child, you will guard and bring through the right energy and support them. So very interesting, and I think very positive. I hope you enjoyed that reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with judgment, which is, normally the call. It's sort of like, in this period of time, I would say there's some karmic energy that's calling you, some calling to a career, to a purpose, to a vocation, to a love, whatever it might be. Very strongly connected to other people, and they're kind of Aquarian telepathic sort of energy, with the way that we have the third eye there and the colours that are coming out and connecting. And in this deck, raising the awareness of that, raising the awareness of connection. So it makes a lot of sense because, as I said, Aquarius is a very transpersonal, very connective energy and very futurist. So awareness of what's coming in and awareness of all the energies of other people, society, all of that kind of stuff has something to do with your transformational journey with Pluto and Aquarius. What's interesting is that this is the moon energy and the sun energy. So I wanted to have a look at sun moon energy, some other astrological energy about it, but also what is visible and what is hidden, what is your life path, and what is kind of your emotional path. And this is quite specific. There's going to be a very strong focus on creating something, bringing in wealth, abundance, outcomes. This is a period of time of great growth for you, but it comes from great concentration and great dedication. Because like what is visible here, what your life path is asking you to do is to focus on this energy, to focus on what's coming in, to focus on the future. And I think quite psychically, the way that the person here has her eyes closed, like go within to focus, go to the connection telepathically. I think most of you that come to this reading are very strong telepaths, and that energy is going to become more and more transformative and more the light that guides you with the candle there in the mind, the connection to the divine, the connection to others, all of that kind of thing. But it's a singular thing. So I feel it's like you will make, if it's around your career, you will make a very clear 10 to 20 year plan, and you will be focused to do it. If you are doing something creative, you are going to see it all the way through during this period of time. If you are starting a family, then that will be your main focus. There's a singular, it doesn't mean it doesn't have other aspects or your life becomes monomaniacally obsessive, but there is a very big thing here. Your transformation is focused in a particular direction on a particular thing that is meant to bring about abundance. But I almost feel as though that's the underneath emotional energy around this. On a spiritual level, it will bring you abundance, but maybe what other people see, I think, is more your connection to them and almost ideas and direction. I think you will be kind of a bit like a thought leader or a spiritual leader in some way during this period of time. So what we're going to do with the tarot is we're going to look at the first decade and the second decade, and it's just to try and see if we get a better idea either about when the main transformation occurs, because it's a long period of time, or whether there are different types of transformation over this period of time as well. So firstly, for the first decade for you, I want to get a sense is, does this focus and this idea come in the first decade, or are you preparing for it in the first decade, I guess is what I want to see. So we have the Four of Wands reversed. We have the Knight of Swords. Oh, I think it's pretty much answering it, isn't it? It's coming in pretty quickly. The Knight of Swords. The Five of Coins. The Eight of Swords. Wow, there's a lot about what you think and believe in this time period. And the Knight is, wow, there's a lot. So what I would say for you, just as a starting point, is that right from the, if you don't already know what you're really focused on achieving, then there's almost like there's a kind of a lightning bolt of information that's going to come into you as a result of Pluto being in Aquarius. It's aspecting probably things that you have in Aquarius or other planets, and it's triggering an incredible telepathic zeitgeist, I can see the future, maybe clairvoyance sort of ability in you. Like it's full on. And third eye is extremely activated over this first decade for you, and probably pretty quickly in the beginning of it, may already have started. But what you're picking up in this period of time makes you feel very different, makes you feel disconnected. For some of you, I've got to say, and bit of tough love around this, you may find that in getting a heightened awareness of others around you and the focus of what you're trying to do, that somehow brings a lot of this to the surface. You find out that you are very different from other people, or that people were not what you thought they were. There may be a shedding of some of the connections around you, and it may be worrying at first. Like, you know, like, am I kind of like going to be all on my own because of the influx of this and what I see? A bit like, you know, because if you're clairvoyant or you're a prophet or something like that, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are, there's a maxim that a prophet is never honoured in their own land. So there's almost something like that. I think that many of you are going to become increasingly psychic and prophetic. And I think some of that is, you know, like they say, like if we really had full-on telepathy and we could read people's minds, it mightn't be the most pleasant thing. There's that kind of energy here, I have to say. You've got the Eight of Swords and the Nine of Swords. It's like, I think at first dealing with this makes you feel like you've got to learn how to deal with it, because you're like a lightning rod. And you know in a way that this is meant emotionally to bring in abundance for you, and you want it to do that. But it's almost like there's an assault on your senses in the first 10 years. Now, this could be very quickly in the first 10 years and then it's done. So I'm not sort of saying you're going to have 10 years of migraines and wanting to sort of like sit in a quiet room all the time or anything like that. But there is something here where you're really going to start to see what's true. You're really going to see the interconnections of things. You're really going to get very, very psychically sensitive. And it's a process. But the thing is that here, with the way that the Eight of Swords is shown, is that freeing yourself from false understandings of people and who you are and finding out who you truly are becomes a liberating thing. And the thing about the Nine of Swords, why it comes across like suppression, is that we can imagine things as being much worse than they are. So I do think that you will find over time that you adjust to this, but it'd be like suddenly having your earphones in all the time and it's a constant onslaught of music, and that might be nice for a while, but then it's too much. So I think there's going to be a period of adjustment to learn how to deal with that, and you may actually pull yourself away a bit from people until you've worked out how to do that. So it's very interesting. So let's see the second decade. The first decade is adjusting to this ability and what it's showing you. What's the second decade offering in terms of transformation through Pluto in Aquarius? We have the Three of Swords, the Seven of Wands, the Knight of Coins. Okay, there's a way through this. Seven of Coins reversed, and the Page of Coins reversed. Okay. Now remembering, this is interesting with the coins turning up, because like emotionally the energy is towards abundance and towards creation and all that kind of thing. This is actually, it's like being in telepathic boot camp. That's what I call, or prophet boot camp, really, for you over this next couple of decades, because I think you've done a lot to sort that out. And if there have been separations, you've kind of processed a lot of the the energy, the pain, or the disappointment associated with that. So you're starting to get ready to believe again that you could go towards the abundance, that you could find your people, all that kind of thing. Like, it's interesting, this belief has a family energy. So if you felt really separated out, or if some of this created a rift in a family, then there's a chance to now move towards something that will work for you, and one that you can be dedicated to, because this is all to bring you towards your North Star. This is all to make you dedicated towards a belief that is actually true, as opposed to something that wasn't. Like, I do think that it's ultimately going to bring you a great outcome, but it's by exposing to you through these heightened abilities what isn't real in your life, what isn't the right connections or the right job or whatever it might be. And the good thing is, you don't have to wait around a lot on this. This will happen pretty quickly. You will know pretty quickly what's going to grow and what isn't going to grow, because you started to really understand how to use this ability. So you kind of like, you've mastered the emotion around it, and you can look at growth and make an assessment, a really accurate assessment about what will grow and what won't grow. And you don't have to waste time on things just to see if they do. You'll really know. And then you can start to plan. It's like, once you've got to that point where you kind of instinctively know, it's no longer painful to see where things are different or things are changing or things were not what you expected them to be. It's become something that's actually refined for you, what you really do want to dedicate and grow. You'll be very able to use this ability to sift through what's worth doing and what isn't, and then plan. So it's a tough Plutonian energy, but it is helping you become an incredible radar of truth, really, so that you can find what is really right for you and for anybody you're connected with. And I think the other reason we've got focus is that it's also a bit of a hint about how to deal with this. It's like, you're going to have so much information coming in that, like, you really keep your focus on, what do I want to achieve? What would abundance mean to me? And even if there's all this white noise, because there's going to be a lot, and even if there's some disappointments along the way, this is all helping you refine your BS radar, basically, and move forward. Okay, so what we're going to look at is, we're going to get 2 tarot cards each for 3 key areas where you're going to transform in this period. So we're dealing with all this sort of almost information overload, because, like, psychic abilities are going to go off the charts in this period of time for you. I'm going to get 2 cards for each of the 3, and then I'm going to use some oracle cards to get some more information. So the first major area of transformation for you in this period is Page of Wands, 9 of Coins reversed. That's interesting. That card came up there for another reading, so some of you may have gone to more than one reading. So there's something here about finding your passion again, finding the focus, finding what do you actually want to achieve and what are you ambitious about, and connecting with the right people. This is what this is about. You're kind of with the wrong people at the moment, I think. Wrong job, wrong organisation, wrong friends, whatever it might be. So this is about finding your people through exploring your creativity, your passion, your inspiration, that kind of thing. The second way that you're going to transform in this period of time, with all this information coming in and this clarity that's coming in, is 10 of Wands, the Hierophant reversed, letting go of things that are no longer working for you and that you were carrying too much for other people. So this sort of says legacy, letting go of the old, because it's too much of a burden. Like, as I say, it's painful to see it, but once you've seen it, you're not going to get caught in that trap again. And then the third area that you're going to change in this period of time is 10 of Coins reversed. Yeah, like leaving the past structures behind. 4 of Coins reversed. Yeah, like this will require a different group of people that you're involved with, a different organisation you're in, something like that. This is a fundamental shift from the past into the future, because there is this sudden influx of knowledge and awareness about what's going on. But it is to the purpose of creating abundance, having a good radar and knowing who to work with and what to move away from. That's what this period of time is about in one form or another. So we're going to explore it with some oracle cards. The first oracle deck we're using is the secret language of darkness, because I feel like the first thing you got to do when dealing with Pluto is go down into the underworld and talk with Pluto. So what is the sort of like energy of darkness, the Plutonian underworld that each of these transformative energies are involved in? So around exploring your passions and so forth, to find the right people, because you are meant to be with people. You're not meant to be on your own, by the way. If you feel that this is about being alone, it's not. It's about finding the right people. So we have nyctophilia, comfort in darkness. Like, you will find going within the Plutonian energy, once you start to understand it, because it's like Pluto and Aquarius. You've got the Aquarius telepathic, electric energy. But once you actually really start to understand it and focus, I think meditation and focus will help for you. You'll find comfort in that. You'll see what this is meant to be. Then around shifting away from outdated responsibilities and connections. Resistance, obstacles to your flow. Yeah, this is where you start to see what is actually not real, what is actually stopping you from moving forward. And then in allowing the old to pretty much dissolve like aspirin in water. The bigger picture. See all sides without contradiction. Like, you really do see, and you see everything. You see everything. And it's almost as though there's a point at which you just walk away and find your people, or if you were to debate this with others, they cannot win, because you kind of see right through them and you see what the facts are. Okay, so let's see what the path of the illuminated soul says about where your soul is at around each of these. So around finding the comfort in the darkness, the focus in the darkness, to be able to reignite your passion and your connection with the right sort of people. We have I am me, the soul story. Typography of the soul writes its own words, the story of you. Yeah, this is like, they're creative. Might help to keep a journal or write some of this down. For the breaking through of the unfair, because there's something where you've done more than your fair share, I'd say. And people either consciously or unconsciously have taken a bit too much of an advantage. So breaking through that for you. Rise up, the phoenix. From the ashes of past come the birds of flame. You will be victorious. Like, it's fine. Like, it's like, it's to the good. It's to abundance. You know that. But the phoenix has to go through the negredo, has to go through the burning, has to understand it and see it and like confront it. And then there is renewal. And then for the dissolving away of anything else that's left that holds you back from your future. Memories, the ocean shore. Watch at the shore what has gone before. I see, I remember. So this is like, it does become something that's in the rear view mirror. It's something that you remember. But because you remember it, you also remember how you came to be wise about it. So you keep that radar going. Let's see what programming is being broken or dealt with each of these transformations. So again, about finding your story, and therefore through that finding your people, rather than just being all things to everybody by the looks of things. We have mischief, having a bit of fun. Like, have a bit of fun. Like, it's because, yeah, you are feeling like you're having fun. And like, you know what? If you start kind of almost being able to read people's minds, and some of it's a bit distressing, maybe you can have a bit of fun with that. Maybe that's a way of dealing with it. I mean, be ethical, obviously, but lighten, find a way to lighten up a bit. Like, a lot of this doesn't really matter, and once you see it, it's a bit like pulling the curtain back and seeing that the Wizard of Oz is just a little man with a big machine. It's not what you thought it was. It's not as big a deal either. You're stronger than that, and you're stronger than those that maybe have taken a bit of advantage. Then we look at rising up as the phoenix, the programming to break there. Oh, wow, authenticity. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so that's very interesting with this, because I do get a sense in this that whether it's socially, in a workplace, in a family, like, you haven't been treated fairly. And this is about being aware of it and finding, but it is also about then finding what is authentic, because this is what this story is about. It's a story of a emperor who is dying, and in his life he had this amazing talking bird, but he then got a mechanical bird as a replacement for it, and the bird was brokenhearted and left. But when the emperor is dying and he wants the authentic bird back, the bird comes back to him. I get very emotional when I think of that story. So this is about I think you will be recognized. I think oddly enough, when you sort of move on, I don't think in some ways that most of the people who you maybe kind of learn about, they're not necessarily thinking bad things about you, but they're going to start to realize what they've lost when it's gone. But you will be with the right people, and those that really are with you, you'll be able to see their authenticity because you have this amazing radar. And then the programming because this is almost a programming that you will never be seen for truly who you are, but it is going to happen. It is going to happen in this period of time. And then dissolving the last of the memories, healing from it all, the programming around that. Oh, wow, it's Beauty and the Beast. Like, you've really got a thing, Pile 3, where you've done a lot for other people, like a lot for other people. But there is also, for some of you here, there is a story of finding your person, and your person is also different. Because right at the beginning, it looked like you felt like you were so different once you realised you had it. There may be the other person, you find your person who could be potentially seen as a beast or different as well too, but you find each other because you're kind of almost more a higher order being, not that you're beasts. So there's something like that. But there's a whole redemptive arc operating here for those that are the authentic connections for you. But for the rest, you're uncovering the mischief and you're learning to have a bit of fun. Okay, so let's see what is the everyday energy around this. So the everyday energy about finding your people. Virtual queuing. Okay, yeah, if somebody just keeps you waiting, doesn't respond to you, only pays attention to you when they want something, but they're not interested when you do, then, if you feel like you're in a virtual queue, that pretty much tells you something. So it's part of the radar. In terms of letting go of the unfair responsibility and rising as the authentic phoenix, we have unwanted plans get cancelled. Like, it's the same thing. Like, this is definitely you finding out who your friends are, really. Who your friends are, who your love is, who your family is, all of that kind of thing. It's all the same thing. It's almost like there's a social fallout of all of this, but it's meant to make you understand who you truly are and who the right connections are for you. And then with this sort of dissolving of the past and the redemptive arc energy of the Beauty and the Beast, we have the ick. So yeah, it might be a little bit unpleasant to do it, but once it's done, it's done. Okay, so let's get you another guide along with Pluto. So Pluto's, a full-on sort of guide to have as an energy. So let's see what else we get in terms of a deity to work with you and maybe sometimes be a go-between between the Plutonian energy and you. Nagina. Now, I don't know who that is, so I'm just going to have to pause for a second and look at the book. Okay, so firstly, it's a representation in another form of Pluto or connected to Pluto. So if she's not actually a representation of that, she probably isn't really, but she is strongly connected to Pluto. So yeah, she's a bit more of a go-between or whatever. She's a serpentine mother and she represents feminine sexuality. So this might be about you finding love as well in one form or another. And now sexuality or whatever that has been demonized and repressed by many ascetic traditions. So this part of this for you might be finding your own sexuality, your own preferences, all that kind of thing. And for some, it might be being really clear on that, moving forward with that and finding your people. Doesn't have to be, but it could be with that sort of energy. She was worshipped across the globe as the serpent mother of all life. To encounter her is a plea for the sanctification of bodily needs. So yeah, like your abundance and your fertility and what you want. Like this is something about you getting nourished, not always being the one who nourishes. The body is a temple, so take care of it, heal it, please it. Return to your body and your senses. So this may be also partly, she might be here as much as anything else to help you deal with the onslaught of the telepathy, like getting back into your body and being able to kind of nourish yourself so that you become strong enough to deal with that. So, and wise, serpent energy is very, very wise. Okay, let's get you some astrology over the period of time. So firstly, we have the sun in the 9th house, idealistic. Yeah, I think you are very idealistic. I think that might be one of the challenges here because I think you may start to find out that not everybody shares your ideals. But equally, if you find that out, you also find out who does. So It's an interesting journey of belief with the sun in the ninth house. We have Neptune in the sixth house, self-sacrificing service to others. Yeah, it's like getting you to have a look at where that's been the case and let that go. You're like, it's too much. It's too much for you. Like if you connect with your people and find people of similar ideals, that's a different matter. But you're so connected to everybody and it's going to be off the charts. You really need to learn some boundaries. And we also have Venus in the seventh house, harmonious. So there's good energy coming in, and like it could be about connecting with a love or something in those sort of things, like the Beauty and the Beast energy, like finding the one that you have the true harmony with, finding where harmony is. It's sort of like, it might be that you find out you thought you had 20 friends and you find out through this you've really got 5, but those 5 are precious. And one of them may be your great love sort of thing. So it's like, it does look like it's challenging at first, and you are dealing with a lot of information coming in and a lot of ability, and you'll feel a bit alone. But you will find your people as time goes on. This is meant to be a process to bring you to more authentic relationships and connections that are at a similar level of like psychic ability and strength, so it can be harmonious rather than you always being there for everybody else because of your ideals. So to finish off, I'm just going to see what your higher self wants to say as a kind of integrating message for this period of time and this transformation. Celebrate. The energy of excitement is in the air. Announcements, connections, and celebrations bring unity and joy. So it's saying like, yes, it's going to be a little bit tough at first because you're going to be a bit overwhelmed. I think you will be. But boy, once you start focusing and using this knowledge, you go towards abundance, you go towards your people, you go towards the more authentic relationships. This will be, in the end, a time that you celebrate. But at first, just understand it's going to feel a bit icky. It's going to feel a little bit isolating. You're going to feel a bit overwhelmed. So make sure that you have the supports around you that you need, even if they have to be professional. If you think like, all my friends are going to be like they're always coming to me, well, go and get some professional support or something like that. Whatever you need, and certainly like any spiritual sort of things that you can learn around boundaries and so forth, and to understand the abilities that are coming through for you. But beyond that, I think at the end of this, it will have been a very joyous thing. It's a bit of a road at the beginning. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.